Hi, and welcome to another grammar lesson with Mr. Fink. Previous lessons dealt with subjects and verbs and also prepositional phrases. Now we're doing a set of words called complements. You may have heard of some of these. They include direct objects, indirect objects, predicate adjectives, and predicate nominatives. So let's get started. All right, just a quick review about subjects and verbs before we get started, because you need to know those first before you continue on with any of the complements. So here's a sentence that we've looked at before. She enjoys baking brownies. And most people thought that the word baking was the verb. And we talked about why it wasn't the verb and the time change method and all that good stuff. So we have our subject, we have our verb, she and enjoys. But what's the word baking? What's that function of that word in the sentence? Well, that's where the complements come in. Okay, so please write this down. These are the definition of what a direct object is. So it says the subject, and then you ask the verb, and then say what. So, for instance, in she enjoys baking brownies, you would say she enjoys, and then ask the word what, and you would say baking brownies. Okay, or if you want to shorten it just to the word baking, then it's just the word baking. She enjoys baking. If the word answers a different question, then it's not the direct object. Okay, it might be something else that we'll get to in a little bit. But again, it is the way you figure it out is you say the subject, you say the verb, and then ask what. Some examples. Snakes bite people. Pretty short, pretty sweet. Once again, you ask yourself the subject and the verb, and then say what. So you say snakes bite what? And they bite people. So there's your direct object. Another example. Maria drove her car to the store. Tom and Sue ate dinner at Chipotle. What I'd like you to do is write down one of these two sentences, find the subject of the sentence, find the verb of the sentence, and then finally find the direct object of just one of these sentences. So pause this video, write down one of them, and identify those three things. Okay, so some other things that direct objects can be. They can be what's called gerunds, which you may or may not be familiar with that term. So there's our sentence again. She enjoys baking brownies, and the word baking would be a gerund. It could also be an infinitive. We talked about this, how the word to in front of a verb cannot be a preposition or a prepositional phrase. So it's called an infinitive. So when you say something like Mark wants to win the trophy, then you ask again, Mark wants what? He wants to win. So to win, those words are the infinitive. It's also the direct object. There's a nice little circle for you. All right, moving on. We have indirect objects, now. Okay? And the definition of an indirect object is that it receives the direct object. Here's what I mean by that. Steve gave Jackie a new car for her birthday. Very nice of Steve to do that. So, in this sentence, there are four things to identify. We got to identify what the subject is, identify what the verb is, the direct object, and then finally the indirect object. So, our verb is gave. It's pretty easy. Well, who gave? That would be Steve. And Steve gave what? Well, he gave a car. That's the direct object. And then who received the car? Well, that's Jackie. So Jackie would be the indirect object. And notice the order of things here. In most sentences, the order of these items is subject first, followed by verb, then indirect object, and then direct object. That's usually the order. All right, some more examples. Not exactly a fair trade, but Jackie bought Steve a tie. Richard Branson offered Mr. Fink a ride on his spaceship. Once again, I'd like you to pause this video in a minute, pick one of those two sentences, identify now four things for me. The subject, the verb, the direct, and then the indirect object. So 4 items you should have identified on your paper. Finally, last but not least, 2 different terms that are probably new to you. They are called the predicate adjectives and the predicate nominatives. And I put the word nouns there in parentheses. That's what nominative really means, is that there are nouns that happen at the end of the sentence, which is what the predicate is. Both of these modify the subject of the sentence. So we're always going with looking back towards that subject. And finally, these can only occur in sentences that have linking verbs, not action verbs. If it has an action verb, then you're going to have possibly a direct and an indirect object, but you're never going to have a predicate adjective or predicate nominative. Once it has a linking verb, then these could occur. All right, another example for you. I am hungry. Again, pretty short, pretty sweet here. Is there a word that describes the subject I in the sentence? Well, yeah, it's the word hungry. Okay. The next thing you have to do is you got to ask yourself, is the word hungry a noun or is it an adjective? And if you don't know that, then we're going to be in a tough spot here. Okay. I hope that most of you know that hungry is an adjective, so therefore the word hungry would be the predicate adjective. Okay. It's describing the subject I. Here's another easy way to remember this. I'll use my mouse here for a second. The word am is our linking verb here. Pretend that that linking verb is an equal sign. So if we have I equal hungry, well, then we know that that word hungry has to be either predicate adjective or predicate nominative. In this case, it's an adjective, so it's a predicate adjective. Here's another example for you. I am a point guard. If you're a basketball fan, you know what that's referring to. Again, you got to ask yourself another question. Is there a word that describes the subject I? Okay, we have our linking verb am. So I am. Is there another word? Well, yeah, there's a phrase point guard. Then again, ask yourself, is the phrase point guard a noun or is it an adjective? Okay, well, point guard is a noun. So therefore, that phrase is a predicate nominative. Again, nominative meaning noun. Another example. The flowers were beautiful. Is there a word that describes the flowers? Well, yeah. It's the word beautiful, and beautiful is an adjective. So therefore, predicate adjective. Okay, so those 4 items are what you're going to have to identify in various sentences over the next couple of days. So please keep those in mind. Once again, if you need to go back and look at any of these videos again, please help yourself and go ahead and do that. It's not very long, and hopefully you have come to an understanding of those 4 complements: direct, indirect, objects, and predicate adjectives and predicate nominatives.